All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I think we can get going. I'm glad to see you all here this morning. And I'm Thomas Berman. I'm the director of the Medieval Institute, and we're delighted to host this celebration of a long partnership between the Biblioteca Ambrosiana in Milan and the University of Notre Dame. And yesterday when Monsignor Gallo was talking, I thought I was thinking through my own involvement in this partnership, my own connections to it. And the one that really came into my mind was that one of the first times I ever came to Notre Dame before I was a faculty member was way back somewhere in the middle 90s when I needed to look at an Ambrosiana manuscript. And of course, at that point, the Biblioteca Ambrosiana in Milan was closed, and so I came here. That was the first time I met Lou Jordan. And I also was able to benefit from the fact that at that time, one could buy microfilms, as I remember, for just $25 a piece, no matter how long they were. And I bought a handful of microfilms, one of which I wound up writing a whole chapter in a book about, and later visiting the Milan itself to look at it. But it was such a gift as a young scholar to be able to tap into this long partnership between Notre Dame and the Ambrosiana. So that's my little story of one connection I have with this great project. The second thing I want to do before turning the floor over to my colleague, Dr. Julia Schneider, is I want to thank a few people who have made this event possible. And one of those is Dr. Julia Schneider, the Medieval Studies Librarian, whom all of you know, I'm sure, and whose office is right over here, and who is such a grand presence in this Medieval Studies community here. So many of you have turned to her when you have a complicated research question, and she is ready to help, and usually with great expertise. But she's also been of great importance in organizing this event, and I want to thank her for all of the work she's put in to make this happen. And I also want to thank Dr. Megan Hall, the Associate Director of the Institute as well. As some of you know, we're a little short-handed at the moment. We're about to hire a new administrative assistant and don't have one. And Megan has been able to take care of all of these logistics during this period without an administrative assistant and bring all of this off and bring our Italian friends here and our friend from Arizona here and everyone else. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for the support of Margaret Reserve and the Hesburgh Libraries who joined us in underwriting this event, and with whom we've had a number of really valuable conversations about what this event might look like. So thanks especially to those three. And now to get our first roundtable underway, let me turn things over to Dr. Schneider.
Thank you.
And go to it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. And I echo my thanks to both Megan and Margaret for all of their help in this, logistical, financial, or otherwise. So as Tom mentioned, I'm the Medieval Studies Librarian here at Notre Dame, and I live here in Site 15B, where people can find me. And I often receive questions about our connection with the Ambrosiana, our microfilm collection in particular, because I'm the person who handles that, curates that collection in the sense of I'm the keeper of the keys, sort of the sentinel, if you will. And we get, I would say, at least 100 requests a year. Questions about the Ambrosiana microfilm, requests for duplication. By the way, Tom, if you want one, it's still $25 for a duplication request. And we also, together, the Medieval Institute and I help administer a fellowship, actually 2 fellowships per year, with a small amount, but enough to hopefully defray the cost of transportation or lodging for people to come and work with the collection. We have a young man coming from the University of Chicago in about 3 weeks to do work on manuscripts with manicula, the hands pointing. That's his topic, and he's given me a list of probably 60 manuscripts that he would like to look at on microfilm. So microfilm is still the state of the art for preservation of these kinds of images, and I'm here to promote it as a going concern, even as we continue to work with the Ambrosiana to digitize their holdings. So, you know, that's my plug there. And I know that even graduate students use microfilm. Eleonora, who's on our panel, will be talking about her experience, and I know that Katerina, who's a postdoc sitting in the back, told me yesterday that she actually has her own microfilm viewer. So this is a small community of fellow travelers, but we're excited to be together to talk about this. Okay, enough about that. Let's get on to the actual discussion, which I think is going to be really fruitful today. So our first panelist is Professor Jeremy Brown. He is the Notre Dame's Jordan H. Kapson Assistant Professor of Jewish Studies. A recent article that he's published is called Espousal of the Impoverished Bride in Early Franciscan Hagiography and the Kabbalah of Gerona in History of Religions in 2022. And he is here to talk to us about the Hebrew manuscripts in our microfilm collection. So Jeremy?
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
Does this?
I mean, yeah, I think that's how that works, yes.
All right. Good morning, all. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you today to say a few words about Judaica and Ambrosiana. I want to, let's see, it works. Very good. I want to try to do a few things in the short time that I have. One, I want to impart to you very just a glimpse of the history the history of the Judaica at the Ambrosiana from Borromeo right up till the present. And I want to talk specifically about not just why this is an important collection of Judaica, but in particular why this material is important for Kabbalah studies, which is my particular area of research. And then I'll tell you a little bit about my current research and things that are going on at Notre Dame vis-a-vis Kabbalah at the Ambrosiana, Judaica at the Ambrosiana. So generally speaking, this is a rich collection in Judaica. This is one of the more prized items. This is an Ambrosiana Bible from the 13th century, which was produced is an illuminated Bible produced by an Ashkenazi school in southern Germany, 13th century. So clearly, there's no question about the historical value and art historical value of the Judaica holdings. But I want to again impress in you a sense of the beyond just the general Judaica interest, the Kabbalah specific interest that this collection holds. We all know this individual. We heard a lot about him yesterday, Federico Borromeo. Luminary of the 16th, 17th century, and founder of the Ambrosiana Library. One of the lesser known aspects of Borromeo's contribution to intellectual history is that he was himself a scholar of Kabbalah. He wrote a book in 1627, not too long before his death, called De Kabbalisticis Inventis, which was a work in two parts. Just to paint a very quick picture of what's going on in this book, the Christian study of Kabbalah, especially in Italy, is something that begins in large part in the 15th century with Vandola, and by the time we get to Borromeo in the 17th century, early part of the 17th century, this is a wave of enthusiasm that begins to break. And Borromeo is writing about Kabbalah mostly in a critical vein and sometimes a polemical vein. And so De Kabbalisticis Inventis is comprised of two books, the first of which is thematic study, which often engages in debunking certain credos of Kabbalistic belief and claims to authority. And the second part is a bibliographic study, and it covers material from pre-medieval material through much of the major works of the Kabbalah through the Middle Ages and right up until the quote-unquote modern writings on Kabbalah by other Christian Kabbalists, like I think the last figure that's covered is Johannes Reuchlin. And I should also mention that the bibliographic study highlights the holdings of the Ambrosiana in particular. There is a fascinating document, is an unpublished Italian version of this text, Dell'arte chiamata Kabbalah, suoi misteri e redenzione. I just had the opportunity to take a quick glimpse at the microfilm of this morning, but it would be fun to take a look at firsthand. So the collection of Kabbalah was built up at the Ambrosiana, not single-handedly by Borromeo, but in large part with the help of two very high-profile Jewish converts to Catholicism, Domenico Gerosolamitano, who was born, as his name would suggest, in Jerusalem. His birth name was Shmuel Bibas. Fascinating figure. I don't have time to go into his bibliography, but he has the distinction of having his signature on, perhaps more Hebrew codices in Europe than any other figure, because he was a censor. He censored virtually everything, and he developed a system for censoring Hebrew texts and wrote a handbook called Sefer HaZikut that instructs others in how to perform systematic censorship of Hebrew texts. The other is Giovanni Paolo Ostacchio, otherwise known as Eleonora, who was a Hebrew scripter at the Vatican, and also not only helped to acquire texts, but also helped to produce some of the texts the Hebrew texts that are held at the Ambrosiana. Fast forward to the 20th century, we have our first the production of our first catalog of Hebrew texts at the Ambrosiana. This is our copy of the catalog, which I can circulate. So it's produced by Carlo Bernheimer. Another fascinating figure. He taught Sanskrit at Bologna, but he sidelined as an expert in Hebrew paleography. He wrote the very first scientific textbook on Hebrew paleography in the 20s. He lost his position in Bologna in the 40s during under the race laws of the fascist regime, but he continued to work to write catalogs, to catalog the Hebrew collections throughout Italy, from Livorno all the way up to Milan. So this is, you see here, the section on Kabbalah, which is the largest section. You'll notice if you just, it's probably about 50 pages long, whereas other sections of the catalog are significantly shorter. He didn't produce a full catalog, and apparently he made mistakes. Gershom Scholem, who is one of the more well-known names in Hebrew paleography, and of course a study of Kabbalah, published an article of errata within a year of the appearance of Bernheimer's catalog, after he traveled in 32 to Milan to look at the material firsthand. And then, let's see. In 1972, we have a second catalog that fills some of the lacunae that were left, and to correct some of the errors produced by Bernheimer, by Aldo Luzzatto and Luisella Mortaro Dolenghi, who she was a well-known Jewish art historian, and there's some beautiful facsimiles that are included in this catalog as well. And one thing I just wanted to point out, this didn't come the image is a little bit pixelated here, but this catalog was produced, it was one of the fruits of the Notre Dame Ambrosiana partnership. Now, just quickly, a few examples of research at Notre Dame involving the collection. I published an article a few years ago on women's ritual efficacy in medieval Kabbalah. So these are Kabbalistic rationales of the commandments, and commandments specifically devolving on women. And it's generally been maintained that women have no share in the discourse, but we do have some evidence to the contrary. And interestingly, it comes from material that's held in Paris, and as I discovered after sitting down at the microfilm machine, also from Milan. So here we have on the right-hand side one of the key texts in the Paris manuscript, and on the viewer screen there is another witness to the same text that's held at the Ambrosiana. And lastly, I'll just mention a research collaboration that's underway that will convene in Rome in May, which is a collaboration between Notre Dame and the Vatican Library, exploring intersections of Jewish and Christian intellectual traditions in the Italian manuscripts of Kabbalah. So we have an international team of experts who will be granted unprecedented access to the Kabbalistic manuscripts at the Vatican. And this is material. The material and the investigations that are underway overlap with the Ambrosiana in several ways. Two that I'll mention. One is that one of our scholars is doing a project on the Hebrew scripture that I mentioned, Eleonora, who assisted Borromeo in producing the Milan collection, and also we have someone who has studied a codex that has changed hands between the Ambrosiana and the Vatican. This was a codex that was confiscated by Napoleon from the Vatican, it deposited at the Ambrosiana at the end of the 18th century, and then in the 30s was restored to the Vatican. So there you have it. That's my quick spiel. I hope I didn't go too far over my 8 minutes.
You're fine.
And
it was well done.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks so much. Where's the clicker?
That's right. So you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. So our next speaker will be Eleonora Celora, who is a doctoral student currently at the Medieval Institute. She's ABE, about to turn in her dissertation. And in the middle of that, she offered to come and speak about her experience here with the Ambrosiana microfilm collection. She recently published an article whose name I'm going to butcher in French, Décrire le manuscrit liturgique, méthode problématique, perspective. And that was published in 2021. So, Eleonora, please come on in. If you don't, you can sit down. You don't have to sit down. Or you can, whatever.
Yeah, I can sit down.
Hello, thank you so much Julia, for the introduction. And I would like to start by expressing my gratitude to Dr. Julia Schneider and Professor Berman for inviting me to participate to this roundtable. Before being a Ph.D. student at DMI, I was an undergraduate student at the Università Cattolica in Milan, and there I first ventured into the world of medieval manuscripts, and I just very vividly remember when Professor Mirella Ferrari took us to the Biblioteca Ambrosiana to see the sources. So I'm really, really honored to be here and to take a little part in this celebration of marking the 65th anniversary the collaboration between two institutions that shaped my journey as a medieval studies student. And to me, it's a testament to how academia can build lasting bridges that connect people across oceans and also language barriers. So as a graduate student focused on the study of medieval manuscripts, I would like to share just a very quick reflection on my experience using the Ambrosiana collection here in Notre Dame. My research centers on the Latin Middle Ages, and so my experience with the collection concerns Latin texts, but I think that my observation maybe can be applied to other areas of the collection as well. And I just written my thoughts for the sake of clarity and time. There are at least two key reasons why the Ambrosiana collection stands out as a unique resource for students at the Medieval Institute and at Notre Dame more broadly. The first is obvious, access. And the second, while perhaps less obvious, is just as significant, if not more so. The Ambrosiana collection has an incredible pedagogical value. It serves as a powerful tool to help us students navigate the complexities of medieval manuscripts and their sources. But let's start with access. For many of us dedicated to medieval studies, direct access to primary sources is central for our research. And while numerous materials from libraries around the world have been digitized and are available online, the vast number of medieval sources means that it is often impossible to have everything we need at our fingertips. And although Notre Dame provides several opportunities for studying abroad and conducting research in libraries around the world, we often simply do not have the time to see everything. And this is where having access to microfilm copies of sources from one of the great repositories, such as the Ambrosiana, becomes invaluable. And for example, my research on the liturgical traditions surrounding the Seminary of Egypt, I was investigating sources that transmit the Latin Vita. And one of these is held at the Biblioteca Ambrosiana, and it's the manuscript D525 inferior. And I was able to simply request the microfilm and access the information I needed, all without leaving campus. Moving on to my second point, the educational significance of having the Ambrosiana collection available here at the Medieval Institute. So during my time at the Institut de Recherche d'Histoire du Texte in Paris and my doctorate here at Notre Dame, I came to appreciate the importance of using various tools when studying medieval manuscripts. Catalogs, microfilms, digital images, and of course the objects themselves. Each of these sources and resources offers a different perspective that help us better understand the objects we are studying. Studying a manuscript in person offers an irreplaceable experience with a physical object. However, sometimes the manuscript alone does not reveal the full story. Catalog provides additional context, offering insights into the manuscript material feature, the history, provenance, the role within the collection, along with reflection on how previous scholars have interpreted the object. Meanwhile, microfilms and digital images reproduce the content of a manuscript in an organized, sequential way. And this is particularly useful for edition and transcriptions. Working with images allows us to manipulate the text in a way that is not provided when dealing with the physical manuscript. No concern about page turning, type biting, or the minute dimension of the script. In my research, I also prepare a lot of transcription and editions of text in chunks, and I often work with the images when transcribing because this allows me to focus on the text itself and follow the flow on screen without distraction from the physical object. Of course, each tool has its limitation and must be used thoughtfully. The only way to truly master these tools is through practice and ideally under the guidance of an expert. And here at Notre Dame at the Medieval Institute, with access to the Ambrosiana collection and with the support of our wonderful librarian, we can have both. We can learn how to work with two of these essential resources, catalogs and microfilms, from the same institution. And this is an incredible advantage as it allows us to see firsthand how the combined use of these tools can deepen our understanding of one single source. And in particular, learning to use microfilm is a skill that might seem outdated, but it remains indispensable in many research contexts. Microfilms often provide the only access to sources for a variety of reasons, and not being able to use this tool would create a significant barrier to research. When I was doing research on the breviaries from the Diocese of Paris in France, one of the manuscripts I was working with was destroyed. It was held at the Bibliothèque Municipale de Metz. However, there were microfilmed images, and through the consultation of microfilmed images, I was able to gain some insight into the content of the manuscript. So while I will never be able to examine the source in its entirety, the microfilm provided me a glimpse of its content. So I think that there is another important pedagogical takeaway for, at least for us students here. While the loss or destruction of a source reminds us of the limitation inherent to the field, and it's in some ways a lesson of humility, we will never know it all, we will never have the whole access to the past. At the same time, microfilms offer a valuable reminder that although we may not have all the information that we need, we still have traces of it. So we must learn to carefully interrogate the fragments and the traces that we have. So all of this to say, it is crucial for us, for students, to get familiar with catalogs, images, how to operate a microfilm reader, and of course to learn how to use to consult manuscripts. Those are skills that we simply cannot afford to overlook. And to just conclude with a short citation, virtus autem conscientia coniuncta sapientia est.
Next up, we have Professor Scott Lucas, who is professor at the School of Middle Eastern and North African Studies at the University of Arizona Tucson. Scott and I became familiar when he applied for one of our Ambrosiana stipends, and he's currently the champion. We've decided he's held those stipends 4 times, and he has publicized our collection in ways that the social media could not possibly accomplish. So we're very happy that, especially given the weather and all the flight issues, that Scott was able to make it today. Recent publication is a translation of Tabari's selections from the comprehensive exposition of the interpretation of the verses of the Quran. It's a 2-volume Cambridge Islamic Text Society publication, and I encourage you to check that out. Scott, take it away.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor to come here. I do usually come here in the summer. I think I will continue that tradition. So it's a great pleasure, and I apologize for missing yesterday. The American Airlines felt I should see Charlotte for the first time in my life. So I didn't get a great look at it, but I'm happy to be here. It's a great honor and privilege to be here. The collection at the Ambrosiana and in the microfilms here are absolutely indispensable for anyone who, who wishes to study Islam in Yemen. Now, as you can, I don't know if you can tell which one is me in the picture, but when I was young, I had the privilege of studying Arabic in Yemen. And that was a terrific place to go. You had to speak Arabic in Yemen. If you couldn't speak French or English, it wouldn't get you very far. So it was a terrific place to go. And there's a small group of Muslims called the Zaydis, a small school. They're usually classified as Shiites. And I was very intrigued by them. I was curious. And they only really exist in that hexagon, in the northern part of Yemen, which is very mountainous, and it's where actually a lot of the population lives. And Sa'ada is kind of the spiritual capital of the Zaydi movement. The first imam or leader of the Zaydis is buried there along with some of his children, and so forth. And so if you're interested in the Zaydis, and maybe in discussion, I don't want to say why they're so great, because obviously I care about them, you have to deal with manuscripts. And so I wasn't comfortable with my Arabic to deal with manuscripts in graduate school. A lot of materials have been published thanks to personal computers. So a lot of Arabic books that you used to have to use manuscripts, now you can use print editions. And so I thought, okay, I'll get back to the Zaydis when I feel more comfortable. And that's about when we started corresponding about 10 years ago. I felt like I was ready to dive into the world of Arabic manuscripts. And we'll see why Yemeni ones are a little bit extra challenging in a minute. Now, there's a very long and interesting story. It's actually, a recent publication has laid this out in English on Yemeni manuscripts in general, and there's a chapter on the Italian collections where, of course, the Biblioteca Ambrosiana features prominently. But essentially you have